Hello and welcome back to our basement renovation. When I last left you guys, I was talking a little bit about our future design plans for this space because we got a little delayed on the drywall progress last week. I still have a couple of spots over here in the back corner of this space near our bathroom that need drywall, but we have an electrical outlet that we need to update, and then we also have a little plumbing thing that needs to get fixed. So as soon as those are done, I'll be able to drywall the rest of the space. But in the meantime, I decided to just go ahead and get started on the walls that I already have up. I have a little bit of experience with drywall finishing. I did some in our kitchen upstairs on the ceiling, and that was enraging and really sent me into a spiral. And so I never want to finish drywall overhead again if I can avoid it. And then I also did our bathroom down here in the basement, and that process went a lot more smoothly. And I think it mostly had to do with the fact that it was mostly new drywall and not so much patching. And because it was just the walls and not the ceiling, I think it just made it a lot easier to do it in that space. So I'm hoping this process won't be too bad. In my experience, the actual mudding and taping and all of that is kind of meditative. I don't mind that. It's the sanding that really gets me. So I'm gonna work really hard to have as little sanding as possible in this space and hopefully maintain my sanity through this process. But the first thing I need to do is clear out these scraps. I'm just gonna find a better place for these so that I have a nice clean space to work in. I'm gonna put on a podcast and get to work. Meanwhile, Alan is working on routing a cable to the floor of our kitchen because our island is right up here. So in the future, if we ever want to put power in the island, we'll have a cable here waiting for us in this bay, so we can just kind of drill through the top from the floor above to get that. So he's just routing this back to our electrical panel that's kind of on the other side of the basement in our laundry room. And then we're also going to have an electrician come out this week and inspect this for us and also do a couple other little things in the basement. Yeah. So I'm just gonna spray any areas where I ripped off some of the paper with some primer. And do that first so that it can dry, so that by the time I get to this, it'll be dry and I can mud over it, because I have heard that if you're mudding over the cardboard part of drywall, like, it doesn't stick very good. So it's a good idea to prime it. Oh my gosh, I'm having a hard time today getting things open. There we go. I need a smaller knife. All right, I can't find my smaller knife, so I'm gonna have to make do with this one, I think. And I'm also a little out of practice. make sure I keep my tools clean. And I've done this periodically if my drywall starts getting a little dried out. Just come in and rinse everything off, make sure I don't have any crusty bits. And it washes up pretty easily with water. And I just wanna make sure I dry everything off really good too. Because it's a lot easier to get it off now than it is when it dries. So I've got that first coat of drywall mud on. I'll let that dry overnight and I'll come in tomorrow and do the second coat. For this drywall job, I did the horizontal seams first, then I did the corners, then I did the vertical seams, and then I did all of the screw locations. I started to say screw holes, that just sounds wrong. And I'm trying to keep the drywall mud as thin as possible. So anyway, I'll be back tomorrow to put a second coat on. All right, it is a couple of days later. Yesterday we had an electrician come out and do some work down here in the basement. So they did a lot. They kind of moved some things around for us. They got rid of some things that we didn't need, and we are feeling much better about all of that. Now, on last week's video, several people commented that I probably would want to keep an outlet in this space if I was going to put a broom closet here in case I had a rechargeable vacuum, which I do have a rechargeable vacuum. And when we first moved into this house, I was actually keeping it down here in this space. And then when we started doing other work, I moved it upstairs, but I do want to move it back down here. So we had to get some updated wiring to this location because it was kind of a mess. Anyway, so yes, I will be keeping the outlet there and I will be storing my rechargeable vacuum in this space. I think that's a really good idea. Now that we've got all this updated behind us, I can go ahead and put drywall on these areas. So I have a couple of things I need to do before I do the drywall, before I do the drywall finishing. So for one thing, I've got this kind of weird little situation here. I just need to brace this with some blocking. And then I want to also take the drywall off of this hallway here. Alan had started tearing this down just to kind of get us prepped for some of the stuff that the electricians were going to come in and do. But I can go ahead and take all of this off now. I don't think that's going to take too long. I've got like a little vent thing that's not in use anymore down here. It's just from an old HVAC system, I think. So that can come out, and then I'll put a fresh sheet of drywall on this and kind of continue that around the corner here. And these are Alan's notes that he made for the electricians that were working yesterday. So we had a lot of work done down here yesterday. They were here almost all day. That's why I was kind of delayed getting back to work, but I'm actually really glad that they did all of this because it puts our mind at ease for several things that we had going on down here. Yesterday I shone a light in that little cavity and I saw this down there. I thought it was a mouse tail. It's just a piece of copper. Thank goodness. I thought I was gonna find a dead mouse in there today. Ooh. There's some mouse poop in there. This thing's just sitting in here. It's not connected to anything anymore. It's coming out. So I have this huge hole in the drywall outside of around our mechanical room. And I can't really patch it from inside because all this equipment's in the way. So I'm just gonna patch it with some drywall pieces. I'm just gonna glue it on with liquid nails on the inside. It's gonna be covered, but I'm thinking, you know, just one more measure. If a mouse ever gets into this house again, I don't want them to see this hole and be like, ooh, that's a great place to make a home. So I'm just gonna patch up these holes in the wall here. And I can't find my big thing of liquid nails, so this is gonna have to do. I'll put a nail or a screw in there too, just to kind of hold it in place. All right, I got the insulation in for the mechanical room and the bathroom, and this is mainly just to help with noise transfer between the spaces, because when somebody's in this bathroom, you can hear literally everything. And then this Mechanical room can be kind of loud, and so I'm thinking that when I'm down here filming, I just want to do everything I can to kind of muffle that sound as much as possible. So now I can finally install the drywall on this corner. Okay, now I can start mudding the rest of this. I'm getting really tired. I really thought I would have like this part of this project today done by like noon, and it's almost 3 o'clock, so yeah, gotta get my second wind here and do some mudding of the drywall. So I forgot that I also had to do this little area around this door, so I just did that, and now it is even later, so I think I'm just gonna clean up in here and call it a night and come back tomorrow morning early and do the next coat of the mud on the drywall. I feel like half of renovations is just cleaning, which I actually don't mind the cleaning part because it's like usually at the end of the day and I'm setting myself up for another day of work. So it feels good and it's not as hardcore as all the other stuff I'm doing. All right, it's the next day and I'm finally ready to put first coat of drywall mud on this corner that I just drywalled and do the second coat on the rest of the room. I also bought some of these corner trim pieces for the corners so I can drywall right over to the corner and make it look really nice and neat. So I'm gonna put those in first and then I'll just make the rounds doing the drywall. So the first coat looks rough, and in my experience, the first coat always looks the roughest, but I did put it on really, really thin. I think the idea with drywall is to build it up with thin layers, the drywall mud, so that you're not putting too many big clumps in there that you have to eventually sand down. So I was pretty conservative with how much I put on like the seams, and especially with the screw locations, I was really conservative about how much I was putting on there because I really, like I said, I don't wanna lose my sanity trying to sand all these big drywall clumps down. So I'm guessing I'll have to do 2, maybe 3 more coats, especially on the seams, but I'm gonna try to keep it to 2 coats. So we'll see, 2 more coats at the max, which will be a total of 3 coats. The first thing I wanna do is take a drywall knife and just kind of go around and knock down some of the high spots. Just kind of scrape it along the wall to get any clumps or splatters from when I was applying the drywall mud the other day. And then I'll go through and do my second coat. I may do a little sanding if I find places that seem like they're really egregiously high, but I don't think I have any areas like that yet. Anyway, I'm talking too much. I'm just gonna get started. All right, second coat is done. Making progress. I think I might be able to get away with doing 3 coats. So I'll just come in tomorrow morning and do another coat. But you can see on the horizontal seams, it's still a little bit rough because I'm still trying to kind of fill that divot a little bit, but I think tomorrow's coat will do it. On my vertical seams, these are like butter. I'm actually really proud. Some of these are not going to be even showing, like on this wall. This is where I'm going to have all of the cabinetry. So I've been starting over on this side because it's kind of like my warm-up practice side, since most of this is going to be covered anyway, but I'm going ahead and doing it just because. But you can see kind of how rough that looks there. But hopefully tomorrow, and then again, this is kind of dipping in a little bit, but hopefully tomorrow I'll just kind of skim over that and get it nice and smooth. And I'll show you my little setup over here too. So I've got a big bucket of drywall, like ready-made, pre-mixed drywall, all-purpose drywall compound. And that's what I'm using, and I just add a little bit of water to it. And I keep it mixed in this bucket and keep a lid on it so that I keep it from getting dry and crusty. So I've got some left over from today that I mixed. I also got this bucket scoop. It's got a little curved edge on it and it just makes it easier to scrape it up out of the bucket. So that was a good purchase, definitely recommend. And then this bucket I've been using for water. I've got it cleaned out right now, but I'll put some water and a sponge. Just got a big sponge like this that helps with cleanup. So periodically when I feel like my tools are getting a little crusty, I'll just bring them over here and rinse them off. If you've ever done pottery, it's just like washing off your pottery tools in a bucket of water with a sponge. And I'm using 3 different knives. I found that this one's really good for doing the smaller like screw locations. I did use it, well, I didn't have this yesterday. I had to buy a new one because this is nice just for some smaller areas. The one that I use the most is probably this one. It's a little bit bigger. I think this is a 6-inch. So that one's been good for some larger areas. And then especially for the seams, this one is nice for the 2nd and 3rd coat. So I'll probably be using this one mostly tomorrow. This is a 10-inch. I have one that's a little bit bigger. It's like a 14-inch, but I don't like it as much. So yeah, that's my setup. I feel like I started getting a little bit into a flow on like the last wall over here. So it takes a little time to kind of get my bearings with this. The corner pieces are really rough looking, but I did use these in the bathroom when I did the bathroom drywall. And it just took a couple of coats to kind of build those up, but they ended up looking really nice. So I'm keeping the faith that they will look nice once I get done with it. But I think the rest of it's going relatively well. I might have a couple of spots that are a little bit bumpy, but for the most part, I think for a DIY job, it's looking pretty good. And I've done a mostly pretty good job of keeping the place clean. I have a few big splotches that fell and I'll just scrape those up once everything's dry. So I'm not too worried about that, but it's not too bad. So I'm gonna let this dry overnight. And I'm gonna come in tomorrow and put on another coat, and hopefully that'll be my last coat before I have to paint with primer, which I'm very excited about. Getting this all one color. It's gonna be so nice. All right, this is my least favorite part, but I got this, whatever this thing is called. It's a sander pad thing. I'm gonna try this. I think this will be easier than the sanding techniques I was using in the past. Just give everything a light sand before I do the next coat. Oh yeah, it's nice. All right, so I got the 3rd coat on and it's looking pretty good, even though it's hard to tell when all of these streaks of drywall mud are on the walls. But it is coming out really nice and smooth, and I've just been doing really thin coats and just taking my time with it. So tomorrow I'm probably gonna have to do another coat on the corners because those currently only have 2 coats. I can hear my dogs running around upstairs. And there's a couple of other areas that I might do a little bit of a touch up on. What are they doing up there? But hopefully next week, oh my gosh, hang on, let me go check on this dog. What are you doing? What are you doing? I'll be back up in a minute. Oh my gosh, you're a wild animal today. Calm down, I'll be back. Just hang on a sec. She's like wilding out up there. So tomorrow I probably will have to do another coat on the corner pieces because those currently only have 2 coats. And I really have to kind of build up the drywall on those areas. There's a couple other little areas that I might do some touch up on, but for the most part, I think we are pretty close to this being ready for primer. I also need to go through and sand everything again, get it nice and smooth. So next week, I think what I'm gonna do before I prime everything is start working on the soffit and the ceiling. So Anyway, I think I would leave you guys here. I want to thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and hit the little bell icon so you'll be notified when I release new videos in the future. And I release new videos on Fridays. I've been trying to stick to a Friday schedule, so new videos on Fridays, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.